And I applaud Fort Worth Community Arts Center, Fort Worth Arts, for doing this play reading thing, and was glad that we were able to represent our college as part of the festival. And I will have my my cast and the students introduce them and their classification and what their character is, and then we will Nicholas, Ted, is going to be both a character and a reader. So thank you, Texas Wesleyan students, for coming. Thank you for you intellectual art types that come here and playwright. Anyway, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm a transfer sophomore student at Texas Wesleyan. I will be playing Becky Schaefer, who will be Martin Schaefer's wife and is described as concerned and submissive. And I will also be playing Jessica Franks, the school board president, who is described as ambitious and assertive.
Hi, I'm Hope Allison-Denney. I'm a senior theater major graduating in May. I will be playing Sarah Mitchell, Brian's wife, a lawyer, described as strong and supportive.
Hi, my name's Tanner Diggs. I'm a graduating senior as well at Texas Wesleyan. Tonight I'm going to be playing Brian Mitchell, a high school biology teacher, sharp sense of humor.
Hi, I'm Lily Seavey. I'll be playing Maddie Sinclair. She's described as a high school history teacher who's insecure and frustrated.
Hi, my name's Nichole. I am a junior at Texas Wesleyan, as a theater major. I will be playing Patricia Lassiter. She is described as a high school principal versed in school politics.
And I'm Nicholas Keel, and I'll be reading for Ted Davenport, who is described as an inquisitive high school honor student, and I will also be your narrator.
And I forgot, I will be reading for Martin Schaefer, husband, who is the asshole parent in the thing that caused all these problems. And then I will be reading Harold Donovan, the very kind school board member. Okay, let's do it.
All right. Act 1, Scene 1. Lights up on the Mitchell living room. Thursday evening. Armchairs and a coffee table covered with student papers, books, and a satchel. Brian Mitchell appears at ease, while Patricia Lassiter exhibits a controlled agitation.
For an intelligent man, Brian, you can be incredibly foolish.
You have a way of mixing every compliment with a criticism.
You know I'm one of your biggest supporters.
Thank you, Pat, but I get the feeling I'll need more support than you can offer.
A lot of people are behind you.
When you're going into battle, it's better to have a lot of people in front of you.
I would hardly compare appearing before the school board with going into battle. Well, for the most part, it was all so unnecessary.
I agree completely. Why don't you try convincing them?
I did. You'd be surprised how little influence a principal has on actions of the school board. The influence of a teacher has even less, which is why you're so foolish to confront them.
It wasn't exactly my choice.
No, I suppose not.
Besides, it's not going to be the whole board, just a committee, and you know how pointless and ineffective committees are.
Maybe so. But they do make recommendations.
That's fine. I have a few of those I'd like to make myself.
Diplomacy and tact. Those are my recommendations to you.
Everyone knows I'm diplomacy personified.
Your directness would benefit from a little circumlocution.
No doubt I would benefit from any number of things, in particular being left alone to teach my classes in my own way.
Within certain defined boundaries.
Defined by the school board.
Exactly.
And who's to say I crossed those boundaries?
The board, of course.
You think I'll get a fair hearing?
I don't see why not.
It's the things we don't see that often give us the most trouble.
I didn't know we were having company.
Sarah, you home early.
Should I have waited? Am I interrupting? How are you, Pat?
Fine, Sarah. You're not interrupting a thing. You were about finished.
And just for the record, you can come home as early as you like.
Thank you, dear. Always nice to feel wanted.
I'll be running along. Think about what I said, Brian.
I always think about the things you say, Pat, whenever I remember them.
You don't have to run off. Did Brian offer you coffee?
I didn't want anything but thanks. See you at school.
Yes, you will.
Bye, Sarah.
Goodbye. I didn't mean to chase her away.
You didn't. We were all through talking. Or if not through talking, all through saying anything.
What was it about?
Just the usual bureaucratic folderol.
Folderol.
And rigmarole.
All that.
A matter of circumlocution. How was your day?
Hectic, as usual. Tedious, as usual. Some people might say it can't be hectic and tedious at the same time, but they'd be wrong.
Is the firm suing anyone I know?
Unless you know somebody worth millions, we're not suing them. Maybe their insurance company.
Would you like some of that coffee you mentioned?
No. What I'd like is to hear what Pat was doing here.
Oh, just some school business she thought of on her way home.
So important she'd stop by the house instead of seeing you in her office?
I'm busy teaching all day, and she's busy principaling all day.
I don't think that's a word.
Well, it ought to be. A teacher teaches, therefore a principal principles.
You're stalling. Did something happen at school?
As a matter of fact, something did. Some news about Ted Davenport.
Is he alright? Nothing happened to him, did it?
Why would you think anything happened?
I don't know. I always think there could be another stabbing.
It's not like we have that many. Only one this semester.
I wouldn't even have known about that one if I hadn't heard it on the news. You don't tell me these things.
Because you worry.
Worrying is what I do best. Now what happened to Ted?
He was just named a National Merit Scholarship finalist.
That's wonderful. He must be thrilled. That letter of recommendation you wrote for him must have worked.
Oh, who knows what effect it had. Maybe some, maybe none.
I'm sure it helped.
In any case, Ted deserves it. He was the best student I had all year. Not only sharp, but a good kid. And I don't say that just because we watched him grow up. I wish all my students were like him.
And that's what Pat wanted to see you about?
You don't give up, do you?
I'm a lawyer.
And I love you anyway.
So, what was it about?
It was about something that came up in one of my classes a few days ago.
And I'm just now hearing about it?
It was nothing. At least, to me, it was nothing. It had to do with biology.
How unusual, since that's what you teach.
Usually the kids are more concerned with their own biology than with anything I'm trying to teach them, but this was the day that I covered the theory of evolution.
Easily covered in the allotted 50 minutes, I'm sure.
Closer to 40 by the time they settled down.
So, after they settled down, what happened? Did someone get disruptive?
Not in the way you mean. I made it all the way through the lesson and asked for questions. That part's always dangerous, of course, though most of the time they just want to know what they're going to be tested on.
And this time?
Someone asked a question that might have been considered off-subject. A girl named Cheryl.
She wanted to know if you were single.
No. She brought up intelligent design.
Uh-oh. Creationism.
She called it intelligent design. Anyway, to make it short, I evaded the question, no big deal.
Then why was Pat here?
It's a volatile issue and she got wind of it. She was just making sure I hadn't strayed into forbidden territory.
Did you?
I stood on the border and looked across, but I didn't enter in.
A wise decision.
A wise decision with an element of doubt.
Doubt about what?
About how I handled the whole thing.
Something about it bothers you? Would you care to explain?
Right now, all I care to do is take my wife in my arms and relax after a long day.
If you take me in your arms, you're going to have to do more than relax.
Very tempting, but first I have papers to grade.
And I brought home some briefs to go over.
Why can't we ever leave our jobs behind?
Because we'd have to go sleep in the park.
No mortgages to pay in the park.
How would we keep Julie in college? She'd have to move back home.
To the park.
So you see, it wouldn't work out. Distressing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Distressing. So many things are.
Something's wrong. Something you're not telling me.
It's just been one of those days.
I never like it when you leave me in the dark.
But it's so comfortable in the dark, where all our worries disappear and we can hold each other close.
Scene 2. Lights up on Brian's high school classroom. Friday afternoon. A desk and a chair. Brian loads papers into his satchel while Maddie Sinclair enters.
I see you survived the ordeal.
Oh. Hi, Maddie. Do you mean yesterday, today, or the entire week?
I meant the reporters.
I let Pat deal with all that. I managed to avoid getting in front of the cameras.
On the subject of avoiding people getting trapped,
You didn't trap me, Maddie. Snared me, maybe.
didn't take much effort.
I regret that it didn't.
You don't regret everything we did, do you?
The physical part, you mean. I'm sure there must be a joke in there somewhere about me teaching biology.
I'd like to think I taught you some of that myself.
You both know it was a mistake.
Mistake is a really trite thing to call it.
It may not be original, but what we did wasn't original either.
If it was a mistake, it certainly wasn't a one-time mistake. More like half a dozen, not that I marked each one on my calendar.
I would hope not.
You don't have to worry. I don't keep a diary.
Neither do I, but I do have a conscience.
And I don't?
It's not the same. I'm the one who's married, so if you think I've been avoiding you, well, I have, for both of our sakes.
What's the matter? Did your wife get suspicious?
Sarah has always trusted me.
That's good.
I want to be deserving of that trust if I can be again.
Being deserving is just a concept. What's real is what we can touch. Don't tell me you didn't enjoy touching me.
Of course I did.
There's no reason you shouldn't touch me some more.
Yes, Maddie, there is.
As a history teacher, I've heard time and time again that history repeats itself and will repeat itself time and time again.
Not this time.
One more after-school conference won't hurt. In fact, I can promise you it won't. Just the opposite.
Stop it, Maddie.
Now you've decided to be faithful to your wife. Isn't it a little too late for that?
I hope not, and I'm hoping I can work through this shame I've been feeling ever since we got involved.
Shame.
Maybe you've heard of it.
Oh, yes. As in, what a shame it would be to end what we've started.
The shame was in letting it start in the first place. Believe it or not, I do love my wife.
I'm not asking you to give up your marriage. I'm not asking for anything as life-changing as that. But after another crazy day in this place, I could use some help. And I could use it from you.
For pity's sake, Maddie, I'm not the only man in the world.
You're the only man here. The only man now.
Not now. Not ever again.
You think.
I know.
Fine. Go home and do your homework, grade your papers, make love to your wife, but I'll still be here next week and next month and next semester.
And probably for the next 20 years, but you've forgotten one thing. Lovers don't have tenure.
You really are a son of a bitch.
Let's leave it at that. Besides, I'm supposed to be tutoring some kids in math right now, and I'm late.
What do you know about math?
More than they do, and that's enough.
You always know more than everybody else, don't you?
No, if I did, I wouldn't make so many dumb mistakes.
And I was one of them?
My fault, not yours.
Gee, thanks for that.
Stay if you want to. I have to go.
Go on then, but don't come crawling back later.
Well, haven't you heard? We're all bipedal now. A great advancement that comes in handy, especially in moments like this.
Scene 3. Lights up on the Mitchell living room. Friday evening. Sarah, agitated, paces.
Damn it, Brian. Damn it. Where are you? There you are!
Here I am. I told you I'd be late because Friday was my turn for tutoring after class.
But you didn't tell me you were going to be on the news.
I wasn't on the news. I didn't give any interviews.
No, you didn't. But your good old Pat Lassiter sure did, along with a couple of parents by the name of Schaefer and their lawyer, naturally.
Ah, you wouldn't happen to know him, would you? The lawyer?
All the lawyers in town don't know each other, Brian.
I didn't imagine they did. I just wondered if you knew this one.
No, I don't know him. He's ACLU.
Those guys get around, don't they?
Don't make a joke out of this.
Why not? It's ridiculous.
They're claiming you introduced creationism into the classroom.
Wow. Would that be worse than communism? I believe in civics class they're allowed to talk about communism.
This is serious.
You say it's serious, I say it's ridiculous. It's all a matter of point of view, isn't it?
Different points of view are what lead to lawsuits. Just tell me about it. How did it get this far?
First of all, there's no lawsuit, just the threat of one. Which is silly, and if you want to know how funny this really is, I'll tell you exactly what happened. When Cheryl, remember Cheryl, asked me about intelligent design, I told her, from all I'd seen in this world, there was considerable evidence of unintelligent design.
And
I got the laugh I wanted, but she pressed me on the subject and asked if the theory of evolution had any weaknesses. I told her I wasn't allowed to discuss any alleged weaknesses. She asked, why not? Going for a laugh again, I said, because someone in the class might be an undercover agent for the ACLU. And what do you think? One of the boys reported everything to his parents who do belong to the ACLU. So you see how funny it is?
no, I don't.
Sarah, I love you, but you really have to work on your sense of humor.
What happens now? The local reporter made it sound like a big deal. With a hearing coming up next week?
Not a legal hearing, just something with the school board. They're appointing a committee. A small committee.
That's supposed to be reassuring.
I hoped it would be.
Pat looked very serious in the interview.
Pat always looks serious. How long was the interview?
I don't know, maybe 30 seconds?
Okay, so you've been serious now for a lot longer than Pat, so why can't we lighten up?
I'll lighten up on one condition.
Now we're into contract negotiation. What are your conditions, counselor?
Just the one. Tell me if there's anything else you haven't told me. Anything that's happened lately, I should know about because I'm your wife and we share these things.
Okay, let me think.
You are not a slow thinker, Brian.
Maybe there is one thing, but it's a good thing.
What is it?
You know Briardale Academy?
The private prep school? What about it?
A couple of weeks ago, someone from Briardale called me about a teaching position opening up in the fall semester.
They wanted you to apply?
They suggested it.
And you didn't think this was worth mentioning to me?
Well, I wasn't going to take it, so I just forgot about it.
Until now.
Under threat of marital discord.
But they were definitely interested in you?
They were. I don't know if they still would be after seeing the news.
Did they make an actual offer?
Actually, yes, they did. With quite a bump in salary. But
you didn't want to leave.
you know as well as I do, the kids where I am now need all the help they can get. They're not rich people's kids, most of them. If they don't get what they need in school, what chance will they have?
My husband, the crusader.
You think I'm wrong?
I think you're absolutely right. You belong in the public schools, and if you had told me about Briardale, that's what I would have told you.
I just did. And you just did.
You thought I might be in favor of you switching to Briardale?
No.
Because of the money?
No.
And the prestige?
No.
Were you afraid I'd be that shallow?
No, of course not.
At least I got an of course not out of you.
You know why I didn't tell you? Because I was tempted. The guy made it sound really terrific, and I'm sure it would be really terrific. The smaller classes, the greater freedom in devising lesson plans, the better facilities, the more highly motivated students, and yes, the money too, the whole package.
And yet?
I do what I do where I do it.
That was so oblique, it almost sounded profound.
It sounded stupid the moment I said it.
The bottom line is, your students are in no danger of losing you.
They may be in danger if I remain. If you listen to some of these complainers.
As long as there's no substance behind the complaint, what does it matter?
You're quite right. What does it matter? In the great cosmic sense, nothing we do on this puny planet really matters at all.
That sounds bitter and cynical and very unlike you.
Been practicing. I could tell that to the school board committee about the cosmos being bitter and cynical. I could say there's nothing out there anyway, so how could I have entertained, much less espoused, some divine plan in evolution or its alternatives?
You're not that bitter and cynical or unbelieving, even though you rarely go to church.
I suppose so. If they stick to asking me what I've been teaching, I'm on solid ground, as long as they don't ask me what I believe.
About God?
About evolution and all of its nuances.
What do you mean by nuances?
They're like the fine print on one of those densely written contracts. Stipulations, conditional clauses, loopholes, both intended and accidental. You believe in contracts, don't you?
I believe in you. And you'll make believers out of that school board committee when you explain yourself to them.
Before that happens, I have to face Mr. and Mrs. Schaefer on Monday.
The parents? Why?
Something Pat arranged. She thinks if we can get them to withdraw their complaint, the hearing with the committee won't be necessary.
It can be that simple?
Pat can be that simple. I doubt if the smoke from this little bonfire will calmly drift away and leave clear skies again.
Can you handle the Schaefers?
I've never met them.
What's your plan?
I hadn't thought about it. Maybe I'll just rely on my charm.
Maybe you better work on some other plan.
Scene 4. Lights up on the principal's office. Monday afternoon. A desk and chairs. Pat sits behind her desk. Martin Schaefer stands while his wife Becky sits.
He's on his way.
I don't have all day.
He should be here any minute.
It's a big school, Martin. Give him time.
Not to mention giving him the benefit of the doubt.
From what Stephen said, there's very little doubt.
Stephen is very reliable. I mean, we can trust what he tells us.
I'm sure you want to hear Mr. Mitchell's side of it, too.
That's why we're here, isn't it? Having this little conference, if we can ever get it going.
Brian, here he is. Do you know the Schaefers, Martin and Becky, Stephen's parents? This, of course, is Brian Mitchell, your son's biology teacher.
Pleasure to meet you. At least I hope it will be.
What I hope is that you're not taking this lightly.
How could I?
Sit down, Brian. Please have a seat, Mr. Schaefer.
I wish we could have met you earlier in the semester, but Martin and I both work, and Stephen has half a dozen teachers, and there never seems to be enough time.
You don't have to explain anything, Becky. We're here to listen to Mr. Mitchell's explanation.
What is it you'd like me to explain? I'm pretty good at photosynthesis, and I'm a whiz at DNA.
You know what they want to hear. Talk to them about your classroom discussion of evolution on that particular day.
To make it short, I discussed evolutionary theory. Giving Darwin his due, after that, a student, not Stephen, asked a question about intelligent design. There was a brief give and take as I evaded the question. End of story.
That's not the way we heard it.
I didn't see you in the classroom.
Stephen said that you gave credence to this so-called intelligent design, which we all know is really creationism, which is religion, which is outlawed in schools.
Outlawed. Like drugs and guns. Maybe instead of metal detectors, the school could put in Bible detectors.
Brian, stick to the point. Mr. Schaefer asked if you gave any credence to the intelligent design.
Credence. Isn't that a little too close to creed? All I did was acknowledge the existence of an alternative theory to evolution when I responded to the young lady's question. I certainly never taught that theory or implied I believed it, or spent any time comparing one theory to another. In fact, I was dismissive of the whole topic.
But, Mr. Mitchell, Stephen claims you told the girl she might be right.
And that's telling the whole class she might be right.
I don't remember saying that.
But Stephen wouldn't lie.
I'm only said I didn't remember it, but it's possible. Anything's possible, don't you see? And in order to change the subject, I might have shrugged and said, anything's possible. I honestly don't understand what the big deal is.
The big deal is you're supposed to be teaching absolute science, not engaging in religious discussions.
Absolute science. Any scientist will tell you it's not always absolute. As for engaging in religious discussions, I hear all sorts of discussions among my students, both in the classroom and in the hallways. They talk about everything. They're curious about everything. They ask questions. Why shouldn't they be allowed to do that?
Let's not digress from the central question, which I believe Mr. Mitchell has already answered. He wasn't teaching intelligent design. Apparently there was an unfortunate misunderstanding among the students, but I trust we've answered any concerns you might have had.
Well...
No, you haven't at all. In order to get perfect clarity about all this, I'm proceeding with my lawsuit.
Really, Mr. Schaefer?
It's fine, whatever you say, if that's how it really happened. but I want it spelled out. I don't want any more of this misunderstandings going on in the classroom.
But that's not necessary.
I think it is.
You know what? So do I. Stephen seemed just too confused.
Then maybe you should sue Stephen and get clarity from him. That would make as much sense as suing us.
Come on, Becky. We're through here.
I was hoping we could come to an understanding.
Oh, we have.
It's the public school system, after all. And some things, well, you know.
You should have more faith in public schools. No, wait, I shouldn't have said faith.
You'll be hearing from our lawyer. At least the school board will.
Your lawyer or the ACLU's lawyer?
Goodbye.
Gee, they seemed like such nice folks.
You just had to make the smart remarks, didn't you?
You think they might be atheists?
It wouldn't make a difference if they were.
I wonder why they have Stephen in public school at all. Must be some liberal thing. They want him to feel a part of the proletariat.
On a realistic note, tell me what this boy Stephen is like.
Quiet. Doesn't participate. Never says anything unless I ask him something. Doesn't even talk to the other kids when I turn my back.
Grades?
Average. B's and C's. By alphabetical fortune, he sits near the back of the room. Doesn't make a lot of eye contact. Now that I think about it, you could say he has the look of a malcontent.
I don't suggest you repeat that anywhere. It never helps to attack the child.
Not even when he lies about the teacher?
Is he lying?
You think I am?
No, I meant he could have misconstrued the incident.
I'm guessing misconstrued the incident won't be how the headlines will read, and it won't be the soundbite they pick for the evening newscast.
You're right about that.
So, I'm still facing the school board committee.
I'm afraid so. If the Schaefers had dropped their lawsuit, as I had hoped, things might have been different, but now...
I face the lions in the arena.
Face them, yes, but you're not being thrown to them. It's only a committee of 3. Jessica Franks, Harold Donovan will be there. Do you know either of them?
I've met Donovan, seemed alright. Never met Franks, glad to say, from what I've heard of her.
A politician in the truest sense. One day she's patting your back, the next day she's stabbing it. The only thing she stands for is self-interest. That's how she got elected in the school board president. And I don't believe she plans on stopping there. She'll use any issue, any hot topic, anybody for a stepping stone.
Meaning I should be careful not to become one of those stepping
I
stones.
don't want the school to become one of them either, Brian. So watch yourself, because everybody else will be watching you too.
You said a committee of 3. Who's the third member?
I am.
You're not on the school board.
No. But I'm the principal here, and it turns out a few people on the board still believe my option counts.
Let's hope so.
Scene 5. Lights up on the Mitchell living room. Work papers while talking.
They sound insufferable.
They were sufferable enough. Pat tried to back me up in her own feeble way.
And knowing how worked up you can get, I'm sure you exercised discretion in what you said to them.
Discretion didn't get much of a workout. However, even though I said what I thought, I didn't say everything I thought, so that has to count for something, doesn't it?
Apparently not enough if they're gonna go ahead with the lawsuit. Sounds to me like you need a better mediator than Pat.
She did what she could. The Schaefers wouldn't listen to reason.
Because they thought reason was on their side.
How irrational is that? When we all know I'm the one who's right.
Do we? Are you?
Almost definitely.
If it's almost definite, it isn't definite at all.
Is this the way you argue in court?
The rare times I've been there, you'd be amazed how many lawsuits get settled before they ever make it that far.
I should have sent you to the meeting.
Except the only evidence I could have offered is hearsay.
Which you got directly from an unimpeachable source. Me! Besides, what were they presenting if not hearsay? Which they got from their son, Stephen.
This is why human relations are so imprecise, unlike science.
You forget humans are the ones who do the science. That doesn't give me confidence.
Good thing you have enough of it already.
What, confidence? Do I?
Don't you?
In some things. In you.
And I have confidence in you.
Confidence isn't always
Isn't always what?
precise. We were talking about precision, weren't we? Confidence is a matter of trust. You might even call it faith.
I would call it faith. You have faith in something because you believe it to be true.
And if it isn't,
If it isn't true, then everything falls apart.
yes, it collapses under a false foundation.
Sarah regards him with a worried look. The doorbell rings.
That'd be Ted.
He must have already been walking over when he called. No clue what he wants?
Just to talk on is what he said on the phone.
Should I make myself scarce?
We'll see.
Hello, Mr. Mitchell.
Come on in.
Hello, Ted.
Hello, Mrs. Mitchell.
How are your mom and dad?
They're fine. Both fine.
That's good. And congratulations on being a National Merit Scholarship finalist.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was something. I should hear in maybe a month or so if I'm one of the winners.
Good luck with it.
And thanks. And thanks again, Mr. Mitchell, for that letter of recommendation.
I'm glad to do it. Have a seat, Ted.
Thanks.
Would you like a Coke or something?
Oh, no thanks.
You know, I've got some chores to do that I've been putting off. Laundry and other exciting things. You guys holler if you need anything.
We'll do that. So, what's on your mind, Ted?
It's that essay I submitted for the Merit Scholarship.
What about it?
You know, they ask you to tell something about yourself. Accomplishments, goals, experiences, all that stuff.
Doesn't sound too hard.
No, it wasn't. But one thing I wrote, maybe I shouldn't have.
Why? What was it?
I mentioned, well, Darwin.
Were you for him or against him?
I wrote that my life was going through stages, like it was evolving from one to the next. I called it a Darwinian progression.
And? That's all you said regarding Darwin and evolution?
It's just that you never know which way people are going to jump. I mean, how they're going to take something.
As in, the events of the last few days.
Yeah, and all the trouble you're getting from that Stephen Schaefer kid.
Do you know him?
Not to talk to. He's a year behind me. But if the whole issue can cause so much trouble for you, a teacher...
Evolution may be controversial in some quarters, but it's nothing you should obsess about.
But couldn't somebody reading the essay, I don't know, take it the wrong way?
Believe me, Ted, the educators evaluating your essay will all be pro-Darwinians. Besides, you're already a finalist, so it's not going to hurt you now. If you win, it'll be due to those straight A's you've earned ever since you learned to read and write.
So even if somebody's touchy about it...
They won't give it a thought, except to think it was a good thought. You have evolved. Except for all those A's, of course. That's been pretty static.
I guess I was just being silly.
No, Ted. The people who either deify or demonize Darwin are the ones being silly.
But Darwin is one of the greats, isn't he?
Deservedly so. Sure, Darwin's great. Heck of a guy.
You know what I mean.
I do, and I wouldn't argue with the idea.
That's just it. You hear so many different ideas. I go to church, you know, and my church never talks about this stuff. But I've been to my uncle's church, and the minister there believes the earth is only 6,000 years old, or something like that.
If you're asking me if I think the earth is only 6,000 years old, I do not.
Yeah, but what if it was?
Well, then there'd be a lot of embarrassed scientists around.
But Mr. Mitchell, what do you believe about evolution? You yourself, I mean. When I was in your class, everything you said about it came straight from the textbook.
The school district buys the textbooks and pays my salary. Those two things are not unrelated. As for what I personally believe about anything, it simply doesn't matter. Well, it matters to me, of course, but I can't let personal beliefs interfere with what I'm teaching.
Then you do believe something different from what you're teaching.
I didn't say that. And besides, I prefer to hear what you think.
I'm not sure what I think.
Which puts you far ahead of most people. Most people are so sure it's frightening, and if you dare suggest there may be some validity to the opposing point of view, prepare yourself to be vilified, criticized, and exiled from their company.
Is that what you're afraid of?
That's a really personal question.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. I'm glad you had the nerve to ask it. I only wish I could give you a decisive answer. We all hate to lose what we've invested so much time in, so much of ourselves. The thought of losing it can be frightening, yeah.
Just checking back to see if you need anything.
Change your mind about that Coke?
Oh, no thanks. I need to be going.
Nothing else you care to talk about?
I guess that was about all. Thanks for talking to me.
My pleasure, Ted.
Goodbye, Mrs. Mitchell.
Good night.
He's an intelligent kid.
And polite as hell.
Nice of you to check up on us. Trying to overhear, weren't you?
What an accusation. And the frustrating part is you had stopped talking before I came in. What did you want?
Basically to know the origin of species. And don't we all?
What did you tell him?
I told him my views don't matter.
But they do.
To a degree.
So why didn't you tell him?
Because I don't know. Certainly, there are biological consequences to every chance encounter. Every dart thrown blindfolded by reckless nature. As for the rest, I'm not sure. How can any truly thinking person ever be sure of anything?
I'm sure. Of you.
Well, there's that confidence you were talking about, and I'm grateful for it.
You're very welcome.
Being sure of something or someone is a precious feeling. I hope you never lose it.
I'm sure I won't. See, I'm sure of a lot of things.
And yet you lawyers can argue either side of a case. They say pro, you say con, they say con, you say pro. You concentrate on anything that supports your argument, and you impugn any other point of view.
Of course, that's how the system works.
The system, the cosmos, all creation.
Whatever you and Ted discussed, it's put you in a sour mood.
Sorry.
You're thinking about the hearing?
Yes, but not worrying about it.
There's something more.
What do you mean?
What else is troubling you?
Why should anything be troubling me?
Mine was a what question, not a why.
The what's always come first, followed by the whys. That's the way of things. The way of all flesh. That's from the Bible, isn't it? No, wait, that was a novel.
My question wasn't that complex. Too much education has made you obscure.
Then I'll be simple and plain. Everything's fine.
Vacuous pleasantries are so reassuring.
Aren't they?
If you ever do figure out what's bothering you, or if something ever does start bothering you, I hope you'll share it with me. I might be able to help. Maybe that's why a wife is called a helpmate.
You are my helpmate.
And always will be. No question about that.
No question at all.
Scene 6. Lights up on Brian's classroom, Tuesday morning. Brian is at his desk while Maddie enters.
Got all your pencils sharpened and ready for the day.
Maddie.
I heard about your parent-teacher face-off yesterday. How'd it go?
Not well, to no one's surprise.
And how was your evening? Mine was restless. You know why?
Sorry to hear it. Sorry you came in here and said it.
There's no use pretending there was nothing between us.
No, but I can make sure there won't be anything from now on.
We're not going to argue again, are we?
I'm through with arguing, and I'm through with...
And you're through with me? Is that what you were going to say?
I already said it. What I was going to say just now was that I was through with being a hypocrite and deceiving my wife.
You're going to tell her about us?
No, that's why I didn't finish the sentence. I don't have enough courage for that. I don't want to hurt her.
But you don't mind hurting me.
I don't want to hurt anyone, but if I have to choose, and I do, then I choose to hurt you instead of Sarah. Surely you can understand that.
And what about you? Who gets to decide if you get hurt?
I'm already hurt. I'm also trying to get ready for my first period class, so if you don't mind...
I do mind. I just can't do anything about it.
You can stop causing yourself all this unnecessary grief.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I'll start causing some necessary grief for you.
Maddie turns to exit, meets Pat coming in.
Oh, hi, Pat. I was just heading down to my classroom.
Good idea. It's almost time for the morning bell.
What can I do for you, Pat?
What was Maddie doing here?
Just saying hello. You just saying hello too?
Are you all set? That is, prepared. You know what you're going to say.
Yes, and no. What I'm going to say depends on what they ask me. I assume we're talking about the hearing tomorrow.
I urge you to be diplomatic. Jessica Franks will be looking to score political points.
This thing's not being televised, is it? There won't be reporters?
Not in the room, no. Later, absolutely. The Franks will make the most out of it. You can be sure of that, at your expense.
How about Donovan? Any clue how he's taking all of this?
I believe he's open-minded. No preconceptions, just waiting to hear from you. Since he's already heard from Mr. and Mrs. Schaefer and their attorney.
Are they going to be there too?
No. That would be overkill, wouldn't it?
Right. No use being overkilled when you can just be killed.
It's meant to be the clearing of the air.
I'm not the one who fogged it up. That would be the Schaefers. Their son, too.
Remember what I told you before. You can't attack the child.
I'm not attacking anybody. I'm defending myself from attack. But I don't blame Stephen. Kids are always getting things mixed up. It's the parents I blame, who never have the time to get involved with school, but oh so quick with a lawyer.
The lawyer's okay. I don't mean getting the lawyer. The lawyer himself seems okay, though too much overconfident regarding the issue. Separation of church and state and all that.
Separation of church and state is fine. It's the all that bothers me. Sounds a little too inclusive.
Brian.
What is it?
You realize this reflects not just on you, but on the school and on me as well. So, please, be careful.
Be careful. Be diplomatic. Anything else you want me to be?
Sensitive, maybe, to how other people perceive things.
You could have just told me to be myself.
Lord, no.
You can't say Lord in school, Pat.
School's about to start. I better get out of here.
I've had that same feeling many times, but I'm still here.
For now. See you in my office at 3:30.
I'll be there. Me and my sensitivity.
As Pat exits, the school bell rings.
Sin not for whom the bell tolls. Oh, who cares? Let the damn thing toll.
End of Act 1. Act 2, Scene 1. Lights up on the Mitchell living room Tuesday evening. Brian sits reading. Sarah enters looking with concern at a message on her smartphone.
Brian. Brian.
Yes?
I just got the strangest text.
Who from?
Somebody called 1776 girl.
What's the message?
It says, your husband isn't as fine as you think he is.
And there's no name?
No name other than 1776 girl. What do you make of it?
I don't know.
Do you suppose it has something to do with the hearing tomorrow? Maybe it's from the Schaefers, or someone who got stirred up by the news report.
It's possible.
But how could they get my number?
I don't know.
You don't imagine it's someone I work with?
Could be, I suppose.
Or the school? It could be someone from the school.
Really, Sarah.
Think about it. My number is in your file if someone had access.
The security is pretty loose in administrative office, but no. Let's not waste time thinking about it. Just ignore it.
When somebody tells me my husband is not as fine as I think he is, I'd like to straighten them out and tell them, yes, he is. In fact, I will.
Sarah, don't.
Yes, he is fine. Who the hell are you? There. What do you want to bet they don't identify themselves?
A good bet. I'd say so. You never know. So, any reply?
I doubt if... Wait. Somebody you don't want to know. They got that right.
Leave it alone now. Don't provoke them.
Did that message sound threatening to you?
No, it's nothing. As you said, something related to the news at school.
But why text me instead of you?
You're asking things I can't answer.
Isn't the school backing you on this? If this is someone from the school, who could it be? You don't suppose it's Pat, do you?
Pat wouldn't do that kind of thing. Why would you even imagine it's so?
Pat has always seemed a little too good to be true.
That's what this person is saying about me, and I can't say they're wrong.
With the local news playing up the controversy every night, it's like you've become a public figure. When that happens, all the crazies start coming out.
Just one so far.
And they start saying all kinds of hurtful things.
You know, it doesn't have to be someone from the school. It could even be one of our friends.
That's scary to think about. That one of our friends might not really be a friend at all.
Forget it.
There are ways of tracking these things.
It wouldn't be worth it.
Your husband isn't as fine as you think he is.
Delete it, won't you?
Okay, it's deleted.
Good.
It would be even worse if the reporters had our numbers.
Does it bother you, all the fuss over what I did or didn't do?
I know you didn't do anything improper, but certainly the fuss concerns me. The hearing and everything, the news coverage, it's so unfair to you.
It'll be over tomorrow.
Are you really so sure?
I'm really so hopeful that I'll get out from under these threats.
So they are threats.
I meant complaints, accusations, whatever you'd call them.
It'll be good to leave them all behind.
Yes, it will. To leave behind everything that causes trouble. Every mistake, every misjudgment, every misunderstanding.
And tomorrow we'll do it.
That's the theory, anyway. The theory. Yet to be proven.
Scene 2. Lights up on the principal's office, Wednesday afternoon. Pat sits behind her desk, looking in a file folder. Jessica Franks and Harold Donovan occupy other chairs.
Is that his file?
Filled with accommodations from parents, students, and fellow teachers.
That doesn't mean anything.
Well, it certainly shows he's been well respected in the past.
We're not concerned with the past, Harold. It's the present situation that concerns us.
Even so, exactly. Included in here the high evaluations I've given myself, plus the ones he's received from the principal before me. And he's won the Science Teacher of the Year award twice. It's going to be hard to argue with that kind of crowd.
I have no intention of arguing. I'm just going to remind him of what he can teach and what he can't teach.
I'm sure he'll have an answer for that. And it might involve arguing.
If he wants to make trouble...
Jessica, the trouble has already been made. What we want to avoid is making even more of it.
Which is why we need to get to the bottom of all this and bring Mr. Mitchell back into line.
If you assume he's been out of line.
I'm not assuming, Pat. I'm investigating.
Investigation by interrogation.
Whose side are you on?
I didn't know I had to pick one.
We're all on the side of settling this issue quietly and to the satisfaction of everyone involved.
That sounded so good, I could almost overlook how meaningless it was. People are answerable for what they say and do.
Including any false accusations they make.
I haven't made any accusations.
I think Pat was referring to the student and his parents.
The Schaefers. What's their kid's name again?
Stephen.
He's the one who got this going. As for his parents, they're only repeating what he told them.
And I wonder how much they embellished it, or how much Stephen embellished whatever he heard in class.
We'll see about that.
Everyone here already?
Come in, Brian.
Hope I'm not late for the Inquisition.
Let's not call it that. Brian, this is Harold Donovan from the school board, and you probably know the current board president, Jessica Franks.
By reputation.
You've been getting quite a reputation yourself lately.
If you believe what you read in the papers and see on TV.
Take a seat, Brian. Although you and I have talked, you also got my memo setting out the reason for this meeting.
Was it a memo? It read more like a subpoena.
This is hardly a criminal investigation.
But it is a trial of sorts. I'm the defendants, and you're the prosecutors and judges combined.
A poor analogy. As I was telling Pat before you came in, we're simply here to clarify what you can and cannot teach.
And what my students can and cannot learn.
Brian, you seem to have come in under a full head of steam. No need for you to act aggravated when we're well aware of the school district's policy.
And I haven't violated that policy.
We've heard otherwise.
The student in question mischaracterized the class discussion we were having.
Whether he characterized it accurately or not is what we're here to find out.
Because he went on to characterize it or mischaracterize it to his parents, who brought their complaints to me and unfortunately to the press.
And when the press gets involved, the school board gets involved.
We just need to have a little talk with you and get things straight.
Fine. What do you want to know?
Did you or did you not discuss creationism in your science class?
I did not.
That's it? A denial is all you're giving us?
Why don't you explain what happened?
I was teaching a lesson on the theory of evolution. Actually, I had finished when a student, Cheryl, asked about intelligent design.
And you told her that was not part of the curriculum in a public school?
Not in those words, but essentially, yes, I did.
But did you tell her why you couldn't discuss it?
Ah, that was the hard part. How could I explain that intellectual curiosity is forbidden when it touches on that particular subject? All I'm allowed to do is spoon up the doctrine set forth in the textbook. If someone wants to explore further, dig deeper, raise questions, well, that's just not part of the educational process.
Not when it involves the class in a consideration of creationism.
No isms were considered.
But you must have told them something more, something to make the Stephen boy complain to his parents.
Was he complaining? We don't know that.
It's the parents who are complaining.
What did Stephen hear you say?
I know what I said. I don't know what Stephen heard.
More than you're telling us. What else was there, Mr. Mitchell?
Brian,
Another student spoke up and said he didn't know what intelligent design was.
Then you explained it.
Not me. I was getting into it. I let Cheryl explain it.
That wasn't smart.
Better to leave the class uninformed?
what did you say after she finished?
It isn't what I said, it's what Darwin said.
Meaning?
I quoted Darwin. Almost quoted. A close paraphrase.
Well, what did you say? I mean, that is, what did you say that Darwin said?
Only that he himself acknowledged weaknesses in his theory. He wrote that the eye still gave him, I believe he said, a cold shudder, implying he had no satisfactory way of explaining how it came to be.
So you gave some validity to creationism.
No, I simply offered Darwin's own words.
Which were not in the textbook.
An unintentional oversight, no doubt, but the point is I didn't stand up there and teach a lesson on intelligent design or creationism, or even the theory of alien colonization. I've always been partial to that one myself.
All humor aside, it's apparent the whole episode was a simple misunderstanding.
Simple if you ignore the fact a teacher's not allowed to fully teach and answer his students' questions.
As it is, you still went too far. The answer you should have given your class is that the theory of evolution is settled science.
Then I'd be disagreeing with Darwin, who also said imagination had to fill in the, quote, very wide blanks, unquote, in his theory, which brings up the problem of having point A, point M, point Z with not much to connect them in between, but unverifiable assumptions.
And you told that to your class?
No, that's what I wanted to tell them, because it might have made them think for themselves, and they might have come up with even more questions. That's the spirit of inquiry, of analysis, of exploration.
That sounds fine, Brian. Except evolution, as Jessica stated, is a fully accepted concept.
Then why not let the students use their minds to come to that conclusion? Not just let them, encourage them.
He has a point.
What?
What would be so wrong with a class discussion?
If it's about science, fine, but not if it's about religion.
Science is what I'm talking about. The entire history of science is that of disproving itself, of discovering things are more complex than we imagine. But if we forbid the questions, how many unimagined things will go undiscovered?
That's for scientists to pursue. In class, we barely have enough time to cover the subject matter.
The approved subject matter.
Yes, of course.
And whatever current science says is so is so. Therefore, the Earth is flat until it isn't. The sun revolves around the Earth until it doesn't.
That's hardly the same. Our knowledge, our scientific ability is greater now.
Consequently, no one can question the dogma of evolution. We must all bow down to the great God Darwin. That doesn't sound very scientific to me.
You're being deliberately argumentative, not to mention offensive.
I was just thinking.
Careful, we're in a school, remember?
I've heard the genetic makeup of a human being and a chimpanzee is about 95% the same.
That's not an observation of anyone here, I hope.
Come on, Brian.
Harold pointing out how the science of genetics helps prove evolution.
Actually, what I was going to say
Yes.
is that people are always looking for a common ancestor when they could just be exactly looking for a common creator.
Oh, God help us. Not you two.
Why wouldn't a creator use the same materials in fashioning different forms?
We are getting way off track.
I love it!
Please understand, I'm not suggesting we change the curriculum, but it doesn't hurt to have an open mind.
That's all I've been saying.
You should remember you're a teacher, not a scientist.
I have a master's degree in science for whatever that's worth.
No matter what your degree, you cannot bring God or a creator into the classroom.
If there is a creator, and if evidence led to that discovery, wouldn't you want to know it?
I know I would.
But that's theology, not science.
I'm not talking about religious beliefs. Follow the trail and see where it takes you, but don't exclude evidence just because it might take you someplace you don't want to go.
You're not one of those evangelicals, are you?
Do you mean, am I now or have I ever been a member of the Christian faith?
Don't misunderstand me. I'm a Christian myself.
That's swell, but so what? It's all irrelevant because I'm not teaching Sunday school. I'm teaching science, which involves rational examination, which involves critical thinking, which involves challenging current preconceptions to see if they will stand. That's how we learn. Or shouldn't Einstein have challenged Newton?
We're having enough trouble with Darwin. Let's not drag anybody else into this.
Speaking of Newton, why do we call it the law of gravity and the theory of evolution and not the theory of gravity and the law of evolution? I might like to ask my students that question. Anything to make them use their brains.
You know, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that.
Thank you. I just want my students to be able to think beyond what's on the page. Remember how in kindergarten, some of the more creative kids colored outside the lines?
Also some of the sloppiest.
Why can't we tolerate it when students think outside the lines, even if they're wrong? It seems to me we should promote that kind of thinking, not rule it out of bounds.
Mr. Mitchell, I'm sure you didn't mean to do any harm.
Harm?
But you bring disrepute to the school and this entire district when you even hint there's a fallacy in something so universally acknowledged as evolution.
I never said it wasn't true. I never said it was true. It's something that deserves close and continual study because, let me ask you this, how long is a football field?
Brian.
I don't see where you're going with this.
How long?
100 yards.
And if I gave you a tape measure and told you to measure it, would I be committing some great offense? What if you finally went out and measured it and found it half a yard shorter or half a yard longer than you believed?
That isn't science, that's mathematics.
And math problems are easy to verify, aren't they? But what about things that, by their nature, cannot be measured? In those cases, 3 plus 5 equals 8, sure, unless you only assume the second number is 8. And you might have very good reason to believe the answer is 8, but can you prove it? And what if it's not? Aren't you curious to find out?
Hold on. This isn't getting us anywhere. We need to stick to the agenda.
Sorry, I wasn't here when you passed it out.
Look, I don't know what you said in your classroom or what you didn't say. It almost doesn't matter at this point. What matters is public perception, especially in a sensitive area like separation of church and state.
So what are you proposing we do?
I don't see how we can allow a teacher engaged in a controversy of this nature to continue in the classroom.
Who is we? Does this include you, Pat?
We need to discuss it.
What are you going to do, fire me?
Of course not.
That would be going too far.
But there has to be a punishment.
Punishment for what?
For the impression, at least, that you're imposing your own beliefs on your students.
No. The real trouble isn't that I'm imposing my beliefs, but that I'm challenging someone else's orthodoxy.
When you use religious terminology like that.
Okay, I'll use Darwinian terminology. This isn't survival of the fittest, it's survival of the meekest. As long as you keep your head down and don't dare suggest there's anything more to consider, you'll survive. But if you raise a question, even one that's simply meant to stimulate thinking, then it's off with your head.
That's a ridiculous exaggeration.
It's the Scopes trial in reverse. Instead of being against the law to teach evolution, it's against the law to even question it. And to make me your sacrificial lamb is truly a case of unnatural selection, because I actually did teach evolution. So don't ask me to pretend otherwise and make a mea culpa just to validate some ignorant policy of intolerance.
We could reassign you to speech and debate.
No. What we're going to do is suspend you.
You've got to be kidding.
What we'll do is refer our recommendations to the board after we vote on it ourselves.
That's right, not rush into judgment.
It sounds to me you've already gotten there.
I had hoped we can keep this friendly and formal.
There's nothing friendly about suspending me, nothing informal about removing me from my classroom.
I've heard that you're a dedicated teacher, Mr. Mitchell. Just how dedicated are you?
What do you mean?
Why fight us? This is for the good of the district.
You expect me to agree to my own removal?
I'm sure it would be just a brief suspension.
Maybe long enough for the news media to stop talking about it? Isn't that the real issue?
After that, you'll be on probation for a while.
Probation. Will I report to someone or will you be watching me? Maybe have a camera recording me as I teach just to make sure I don't stray from the approved text or say anything inappropriate. No forbidden subjects, no hint of doctrinal impurity.
Brian, you'll be back in the classroom as soon as all of this dies down, like Harold was saying.
More like I was asking.
Until then, who takes over my classes?
There's no reason we can't find an acceptable substitute.
An uncredentialed, inexperienced babysitter is going to teach my students.
They are the school's students.
We have some qualified substitute teachers, you know that.
All with master's degrees and many years of experience teaching biology, I'm sure. Why not just put the lessons on tape and play them to the class? That way you can avoid anything as dangerous as a dialogue, or intrusive as a question, as uncontrollable as a teacher.
Nothing's been decided yet. Maybe we should take a vote on this suspension idea.
Now? Why not? We can move this thing along. In terms of our report to the board, I vote yes for suspension. Harold?
I vote no.
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 Because?
It's a step too far and for the wrong reason.
If that's your opinion.
It is.
All right. Pat?
It's a difficult decision, but I vote yes.
Pat!
I'm sorry, Brian, but I have to consider the school.
The vote is in favor of suspension, and I have no doubt the full board will go along with that.
Pat!
We also need you to make a statement to the press, something to show you're aware you crossed the line and you've agreed not to do it again.
I won't lie.
You're saying you will do it again.
I'm saying I never did it in the first place, but I should have. I should have been able to have an open, free-thinking discussion with my class.
You're free to think whatever you want. You just can't teach it.
Then I don't see how you can take a chance on having me around. At any point, and I might accidentally set off a thought explosion resulting in great carnage in my students' minds. Why not get rid of a subversive like me?
We need good teachers like you, Mr. Mitchell.
President Jessica here obviously disagrees, but she's not the only one who wants me to leave the public school system. I received an offer recently to join the faculty at Briardale Academy.
The prep school?
You're not serious.
They were. They offered me $10,000 a year more than I'm making now, but I turned them down.
May I ask why?
Ego. I thought I was making a difference here. But even a teacher can learn, and the lesson I've learned is this. I can't make a difference if I'm not allowed to make a difference. So you know what? I'm going to call Briardale and tell them I've changed my mind.
Don't do that, Brian.
You see, my thinking has evolved. And yes, they do teach evolution at Briardale, but they don't short-circuit their students' brains or impose limitations on creative thought. And when a student asks a question, even if it's not in the lesson plan, you're allowed to answer it. It's called education. Can you imagine it? No. No, I guess you can't.
I told the Schaefers I would give them a report. What do you expect me to tell them?
At the risk of sounding religious, you can tell them to go to hell.
Scene 3. Lights up on the Mitchell living room, Wednesday evening. Brian and Sarah share their outrage.
Pat turned on me.
I can't believe it.
School politics. Mingle with cowardice.
And she was supposed to be on your side,
She's on the side of surviving as principal.
while throwing you to the wolves.
Phrased in more genteel terminology, of course.
Suspension.
That's what they're calling for.
For how long?
Who knows? Maybe for the rest of the term.
And next term?
I'll be teaching at Briardale.
You're serious?
You sound like Pat. Yes, I'm serious. Do you object?
No, not necessarily. But if you really wanted to, we could fight this. Take them to court.
A lawsuit? On what grounds?
Whatever grounds we come up with. You don't need grounds to sue someone. You only need grounds to win.
We'd lose.
The school district would lose too. The purpose of a lawsuit is to inflict damage on the other party. If the other party wants to avoid damage, they'll settle.
I don't understand what damage you're talking about.
The notoriety and ridicule they'd be exposed to. Right now, they look strong. But we could put them on the defensive. Everything would come out in court.
When you say everything coming out,
Can you imagine Pat Lassiter and Jessica Franks on the witness stand? And the Schaefers?
not Stephen. You can't put a student through that.
That's what the ACLU was proposing to do, wasn't it? They were ready to sue the school district, and Stephen would have been their witness.
They'll probably drop it now that I'm out. It was just a threat.
Which got them what they wanted. We can do some threatening too.
Without taking it as far as court.
Unless we have to.
When you start suing people, there's no telling all the things they might dig up.
Yes. But then you're not guilty of anything. Isn't that right?
Well, anything covers a lot of ground.
Well, you're certainly not guilty of anything that should get you suspended.
Sarah, you're a lawyer, and you have a lawyer's instincts, but lawsuits aren't for me, and I doubt if the partners at your firm would be too keen on getting involved either.
They wouldn't have to be involved.
Realistically, if you're involved, so are they. You know that.
It's just so frustrating, so unfair. Let's do it. Let's fight them.
No.
Why not?
It's better to walk away. Filing a lawsuit seems desperate. A form of groveling for something that's been taken away from you by someone stronger.
So it's a matter of wounded pride?
Maybe. This way I leave with my head up, moving forward, not looking back.
Except you will look back.
And be glad I got away.
Briardale Academy is really that good?
Yes, and very understanding too. As soon as I left the meeting, I called Briardale and spoke to the chancellor. I explained the whole situation. He didn't have a problem with it. The offer stands.
What about the other kids you'll never have a chance to teach? Won't you feel guilty about walking away?
Sure I will. Probably for a long time, but they can still rise above the average if they want to. They can still make it if they struggle hard enough. Survival of the fittest.
And you'll survive as well?
That's one of the unresolved questions in evolution. It's not just about where we've been, but where we're going. What happens next? How are we changing?
And how we've already changed. Sometimes without even knowing it. We look around, we look at ourselves, and suddenly everything's different.
Not everything.
Maybe not, but enough to notice.
Scene 4. Lights up on Brian's classroom, Thursday morning. Brian is packing his personal belongings from his desk. Maddie enters.
So it's true? They're suspending you.
It's not official yet, but Pat made it clear to me.
They're getting rid of you for the same reason you got rid of me. You became an embarrassment to them.
You're wrong on both accounts, but there's no use going into it.
No use at all? No use to anything?
If you're stocking up on self-pity, I don't have any to spare.
Your students will miss you.
Maybe some of them will. Most won't. To them, I'm just another teacher.
Who's taking your classes?
I have no idea, and since I won't be coming back, it's not my concern.
What do you mean, not coming back?
I've accepted a position at Briardale.
You're leaving for good?
I'm hoping it'll be good.
Briardale. Fancy. I thought about applying there, but you have to at least have a master's degree. Some of those people even have PhDs.
That's what I hear.
I believe there's another reason you're leaving.
What would that be?
Me. It's not this school you want to get away from, it's me.
That's a little self-centered, isn't it?
This way you won't have to see me anymore.
I already told you I wouldn't be seeing you anymore.
But now you won't even be around. You don't want there to even be a chance of us starting up again. You've turned against me that much.
Oh, Maddie, for pity's sake, get over yourself. And get over me. And something else. Don't ever send another text message to my wife. I didn't appreciate it.
I didn't. All right, maybe I did. I've been drinking some, more than some. You did it to me.
What we do to ourselves. I want to keep my marriage and I nearly threw it away.
For me.
No, for the simple temptation of something new and different and exciting.
Thanks for that. At least that I was exciting.
I am sorry, Maddie. Not just for betraying Sarah, but for messing you up too.
Messing me up more than I was already. After all, you said we do these things to ourselves. But getting suspended, that wasn't something you did to yourself.
Wasn't it? One action leads to another, and that one to another. Every selection we make produces a change, and the sequence of changes eventually leads us to wherever we are now, and going forward through each adaptation to whatever we become.
You should teach philosophy.
No, that was pure science.
There's nothing pure. Believe me.
You're right, of course. It's the impurities, the variations, the mutations, if you will, that lead to unknowable results.
Listening to that, I really need a drink. Too bad I'll have to wait till after school. Even worse, I'll have to drink it alone.
I doubt if you'll remain alone very long.
Did you mean that as a compliment or an insult?
Neither one, actually. Merely an observation.
Has anyone ever told you you're a son of a bitch?
I believe you did.
Then it must be what I really think of you.
I wish things were different.
Yeah, I wish that all the time.
Mr. Mitchell,
Hello, Ted.
that was Miss Sinclair who just left.
You know her?
I had her for American history.
How was she?
Very good.
Glad to hear it.
Kind of excitable once she got going on something.
Yes. What are you doing here?
I heard what happened. I mean, about you leaving and all.
That's right. I'm saddling up and riding off into the sunset.
I hate that. Not because of this crazy evolution business.
The business part is crazy, not the evolution.
Yet,
What's on your mind?
I've been reading a lot about the two different sides. Science and religion, how everything came to be.
They're not necessarily in opposition, it's in the interpretation. Certain things can be finessed. Though, I'll admit, when they get debated, there is not much finesse in evidence.
It's the evidence that bothers me. All the gaps. Our one species somehow turns into a completely different species over millions of years. But where's the proof of that? In one case, there was this dinosaur fossil with bony extensions on its knuckles, and the scientists claimed it was evidence that they were evolving into feathers. Why couldn't it just be a dinosaur with bony knuckles?
An excellent question. The kind that carries its own answer.
People who believe in God created humans, human beings, are lots of times laughed at because of their faith. Faith isn't taken seriously because it's not something you can see, but I've been thinking.
Good for you. Thinking what?
In evolution, time kind of takes the place of faith. Don't you see? They can't really prove how these species changed into something else, but they have an idea about it. And they just say it happened over time. Over time, these things happened. And you just have to accept that. So it's still faith, just a different kind.
Ted, I congratulate you on using your mind for something more than memorizing. But take my advice and don't ever write anything like that on a test.
But really, what do you think about it? About how human beings developed?
I'll tell you the honest truth. I find it nearly impossible to believe that human beings evolved from primordial sludge. On the other hand, there's plenty of evidence we go back tens of thousands of years. Where does that leave scientists and people of good faith? We're all just trying to fill in the blanks.
Can we ever really do that?
Another good question. Keep asking those, Ted. They'll take you a long way. And as I leave here, let me just say that to you. Let me just say that you and others like you are what kept me going year after year. You've excelled while most of your classmates fell away or anyway fell short. In simpler times, they would have all been eaten and you would have survived. At least I'd like to think you would have.
Well, I've got to get to class.
Goodbye then. And good luck.
You too, Mr. Mitchell. Brian, packed up now, looks around one final time.
And here I go, crawling out of the sludge.
Scene 5. Lights up on the Mitchell living room. Thursday evening. Brian sits moodily, staring at nothing. Sarah enters with her briefcase and sets it down.
You look busy. What have you been doing on your first day off?
Same thing I'm doing now. Nothing.
That's a dangerous thing to be doing. It's liable to grow from day to day, swallowing your entire life.
I know.
I still say we should fight this, Brian. Not only for you, but for the kids you're leaving behind. And you will be leaving them behind in more ways than one. I don't have to tell you that.
But you just did.
You said it yourself just a few days ago. The public schools need you.
One public school, one classroom, one subject. No, great loss.
Now you're feeling sorry for yourself. You should be feeling sorry for them.
What do you expect me to do about it, Sarah? Go to court? That would take forever and wouldn't be good anyway. Not to mention the expense of it.
You've got me!
Pro bono.
And worth every penny.
I went around saying goodbye today. It was not a happy farewell.
What did Pat say to you?
I avoided Pat, and she avoided me.
That traitor.
She was just doing what bureaucrats do.
It'll be months before you can start at Briardale in the fall. What are you going to do till then?
I suppose I could work up lesson plans for the next 8 semesters.
Or, I hate to say it, you could swallow your pride and take the suspension.
You're kidding. What happened to the injustice of it all?
It's still unfair. But they never said how long the suspension would be, did they? I have a feeling it wouldn't be as long as you'd imagine. Pretty soon you'd be back doing what you enjoy doing it, and doing it where you're meant to do it.
Therefore, counselor, your advice is for me to cop a plea and take the deal, pleading guilty even though I'm innocent, and do my time. Of course, it'll go on my record, and all records in public schools are permanent records, let me tell you.
It's your decision to make. I'm just pointing things out. You haven't even gotten your notice of suspension yet, have you?
That's a moot point since I walked out on them. I essentially quit.
But you didn't give them a letter of resignation.
No.
And the school board hasn't taken a position, have they?
Jessica Fanks is the school board. Their vote will be pro forma.
Stop throwing legal terms at me.
It's not legal, it's Latin.
You annoy me sometimes.
What kind of husband would I be if I didn't?
The doorbell rings.
Talk about annoying, unexpected callers.
Hello, Sarah.
Pat, what are you doing here?
May I come in for a moment? Is Brian here?
I'm here for a moment. What do you want, Pat?
I wanted to explain.
Explain what? We could be here for years while you explained all kinds of things. The Industrial Revolution, how electricity works, the invention of telecommunications.
Will you listen?
Should we listen, Sarah? I have to consult my attorney on matters like this.
It never hurts to listen.
Oh, but it does, depending on what the other person has to say.
I want to say that I'm sorry, but I couldn't go against Jessica.
Harold did.
Harold's elected. I'm appointed.
In other words, it was either your career or Brian's.
I didn't see it that way. It doesn't have to mean your career, Brian.
You could have spoken up for me.
I did. Before the hearing and afterward, too.
After you voted against me.
I voted against a certain perception, one created by the media after everything went public.
I know. The whole church versus state thing. What a load of crap.
Is that Latin too?
It ought to be.
The school board is meeting this evening. Right now, as a matter of fact.
Why aren't you there with them?
I didn't want to make it look like I'm supporting them in this.
What kind of double talk are you giving us? First you're on one side, then you're on the other, then back again. You can't play both teams, Pat.
It's not a competition. It's more of a negotiation.
Ah, negotiations. I know about those. And contract law. We could pull out Brian's contract with the district and examine all the P's and Q's and any other letter that might be useful. The alphabet is full of them, and each one can be litigated.
You don't want to do that.
Actually, she does. But I don't.
If you want to stay, Brian, you'll have to decide how you can accomplish that.
Stay and do what? Always feel like I'm being watched? wondering when the next student might get something sinister in his head and turn my life and career into a minor spectacle for everyone's amusement but my own?
Amusement isn't the word I choose for what's been happening.
What word would you choose?
I don't have the vocabulary to describe it.
Whatever it is, you've been a part of it. An instigating part.
No, my role has been a responsive one, and being responsive, responsible.
You should have been a politician. Next time you should run for the school board.
The Shapers made too much of this, I admit. And Jessica Franks made too much of it. And of course, the media with all their coverage will only hurt us.
Don't even talk to me about the press.
Just our luck. It was a slow news week. Where's a good serial killer when you need one?
But, most of all, you made too much of it.
Me?
You could have been more conciliatory, more willing to calm the waters instead of making waves. You could have let this episode slide past with a brief suspension, then go on as before.
Once something like this happens, there's no going on as before. It changes things, and there's no use denying that fact.
No, it really can't be about going back. It has to be about what follows.
Cause and effect, action and reaction, basic science, right?
Basic nonsense.
You may be right at that. There's no sense to be had. Fact or opinion, whatever we say, whatever we're told, it's hard to make sense of anything.
Pat's cell phone rings in her pocket. She pulls it out and answers it.
Hello? I see. What was the word? Are you sure? Yes, I understand. Thank you for letting me know. The board voted. They overruled Jessica. You're not suspended.
That's, I don't know.
It's wonderful.
I don't understand.
It's what you said, action and reaction. In this case, Jessica's action to the board's reaction, or maybe the reaction to all the hoopla. Apparently, they've been getting a lot of calls, emails, text messages, most of them running in your favor.
Voters.
Presumably.
So, we don't know if it was public pressure or personal conviction or the principle of the thing that swayed them.
Does it matter?
It ought to.
The only thing that matters is that you can stay right here and go on teaching.
You won, Brian.
I don't feel victorious. I wonder why that is.
Don't analyze it, just appreciate it. Tomorrow morning you'll be back in the classroom.
No, I don't believe I will.
Why on earth not?
You still want to go to Briardale?
I have to.
But why? Please don't tell me it's about evolution or creationism or intelligent Shazam.
I'm sick of evolution. That's not it. Not directly, anyway.
Then what?
Do you honestly know the reason? Or is it something you'd rather not admit to?
Admit to? It's about freedom. Freedom of thought. Freedom of expression. Freedom to explore.
Exploring means getting away, doesn't it? Escaping from where you've been and from anyone who might want to hold you.
You don't have to leave.
You advised me, Pat, against analyzing too much, so I won't even try.
You've made up your mind.
I have.
All right, then. But you're making a mistake.
I've made them before. Consequently, those mistakes have made me.
All part of the intelligent design, no doubt.
Intelligent or not, that's how it is.
Goodbye, Sarah.
Goodbye.
That was unpleasant. Putting an end to things. Not very satisfying either.
Having second thoughts already?
Yes and no. And maybe. But it's done.
Too bad we're not taking it to court.
You versus the ACLU.
I'm pretty good with the details. The process of discovery, making rational deductions, arriving at conclusions.
That's what the ruckus over evolution is all about. Deductions and conclusions, but how much attention is paid to the rational process? Letting people think things through and consider the random nature of the universe, if in fact it is random.
Do you think it is?
Maybe things appear random when they happen. Then looking back at how they fit together and what they produce, they don't appear random at all. which doesn't mean they were planned, but tracking backward, you see connections you couldn't see going forward, and somehow it all makes sense. Or not.
I thought you were sick of evolution.
I am, you're right. What good is refighting the battle, and the battle could have been about anything. Science, history, literature, it wouldn't matter. It's about intellectual integrity.
Integrity.
Yes.
Like the founding fathers, pledging their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor.
I guess so, something like that.
The spirit of 1776, if you know your American history.
Yes.
I suppose it'll be exciting to start someplace new. Isn't there anything you'll miss? I'm sure you'll miss some of the other teachers.
Of course. I do have friends there. I've known some of them for years. I might even miss Pat eventually.
But there are special friends, aren't there? Some you're closer to than others?
Naturally.
Friendships can't help but change us. Sometimes they make us stronger. Sometimes they play on our weaknesses, causing damage, leading us to places we don't want to be.
I really don't understand. Are you talking about Pat?
No, but I was thinking, all things really do evolve, don't they? Jobs, friendships, marriages.
That's probably true.
Then tell me, Brian. Tell me about Maddie Sinclair.
They freeze in position as lights fade to blackout. End of play.